When it comes to decreasing in brioche pattern, there are three things to keep in mind. First of all, the yarn overs that we add to create the puffy texture of brioche are not counted as one stitch. They are kind of companions of the knit stitches, so we're going to count each knit stitch and the yarn over as one stitch. Another thing is, because brioche stitch is based on 1x1 ribbing, the only way to keep the pattern consistent is to decrease 2 stitches instead of 1, similar to a knit 3 decrease. That means that we will always deal with 3 stitches. And because the decreases look way better when they're built around a knit stitch, so these columns of knit stitches would just continue and create those beautiful lines of decreases, in the majority of cases we would deal with a knit stitch, a purl stitch, and another knit stitch with their yarn overs, of course. So now that we know that, let's take a look at the decreases themselves. First, we'll look at the right slanting decrease, and there are 2 ways to make this decrease. One of them is more straightforward, the other one is more fiddly, but in some cases it's worth taking those extra steps. So both ways start at the point that is 2 stitches away from the planned decrease. So work in a brioche pattern up until you get to 2 stitches before the planned decrease. So I'm going to make my decrease right here at the last knit stitch. So I'm going to stop when I get to this point, that is 2 stitches, and we count, remember we count the knit stitch and the yarn over as 1 stitch. So when I get here in just a moment, that's when I stop, and that's when I'm ready to make a decrease. So right here, so I have the decrease happening over here, and I stop 2 stitches before that point. The first decrease, the most straightforward one, is a simple knit 3 together, and in this case we're gonna knit 5 strands together, and that's when it could get a bit tricky, because it is not easy to insert the tip of the right needle from left to right into all 5 strands. And to help you with that, you can move the stitches closer to the tip of the needle, that is usually a bit less wide, and then squeeze the needle into the 5 strands, wrap the needle with the yarn, and pull the wrap through, just like this. So that's our first right slanted decrease, and then continue working in the brioche pattern, and all decreases in the wrong side rows are worked as the usual brioche pattern. So I'm gonna just knit these 2, and this is the stitch that resulted from our decrease, so I simply make yarn over and slip it. So nothing changes in the wrong side row. We simply work as we always do in the brioche pattern. So this decrease, like I said, is more straightforward, but as you see, it is not that easy to do physically, right? So if you're a tight knitter, or if you're making a tight fabric like I do right now with the brioche stitch, then it might be worth taking a few extra steps and make a decrease in another way. The second way of making a right slanting decrease also starts at a point that is 2 stitches before the planned decrease. So in my case, if I'm going to make the decrease right over here, and that's what I'm going to do, then I stop when I get over here. Just 1 more stitch. And again, like as you see, we deal with a knit stitch, a purl stitch, and a knit stitch with the yarn overs, of course. So now we are ready to make a decrease. And here's what we do. First, we insert the tip of the right needle into the first knit stitch with its yarn over, from left to right, and we slip this stitch. So we slip this stitch knitwise to the right needle. Now we return it back. This time we do it purlwise like this, and we knit this stitch together with the next stitch through the back loop, just like this. And as you see, to make this action more efficient, it is better not to take the right needle out when you slip the stitch, but instead you insert it, you push it forward to go into the next stitch and then wrap it with the yarn and then knit these stitches together through the back loop. So that's faster basically and more efficient, less movements. So now that we have this 1/2 of a decrease done, right? Now we slip this stitch, the one that we've just formed, to the left needle again. So this stitch is a bit of a travel. We slip it back and forth. So we slip it to the left needle. This time we do it purlwise without twisting the stitch. And then we're gonna pass this stitch over this one. So we insert the tip of the right needle from right to left into this stitch, the second one from the tip of the left needle, with its yarn over, see? And we pass it over the stitch, the first stitch from the tip of the right needle, of the left needle, and we let go of these stitches. So that's what happens when we make this decrease. And now, because this stitch is already worked, it's already knitted, right? We slip it to the right needle. And then we get this lovely decrease over here and continue to work in the pattern. So what makes these decreases different and how they look when we keep making those decreases in the same place on top of each other? So I have two swatches over here to show how these decreases look. They are almost identical, unless you are really picky and look really closely at the work. Then you would notice that over here the decreases are bulkier, that's the first way, and they are not turned kind of the right way because we've been knitting 3 stitches together. This decrease is kind of neater, I would say, again, if you look closely, but otherwise they look very, very similar to each other, and the wrong side of the work is also very similar. So in this case, I would say just try both decreases, see which one works better for you, which is easier, more comfortable, and then stick with that way of making a right slanting decrease in brioche pattern. Now that we figured out how to make right slanting decreases in brioche pattern, let's see how we can make a left slanting one. First, work to a spot where you plan to decrease stitches. So if I want to make this column of knit stitches going on and forming the decreasing line, then I would work up until I get over here. So I'm not leaving any stitches in front of this spot. I'm just going straight to that spot. Just work in a simple brioche pattern up until you get to the spot where you plan to decrease stitches. This type of decrease is very similar to the second way that we use to make a right slanting decrease. We also start by slipping the first stitch knitwise. So I insert the tip of the right needle from left to right into the stitch and then take the left needle out, leaving the stitch on the right needle. Then knit the next purl stitch and the knit stitch together. So we go, and of course we take the yarn over with us as well. So we insert the tip of the right needle knitwise, so we knit them together as usual from the left side to the right side, and we go and wrap the needle with the yarn, pull the wrap through, just as we normally do when we knit 2 stitches together. So now we're done. And now we're gonna pass the slipped stitch over the one that we've just created. To do that, we insert the tip of the left needle from left to right into the slipped stitch with its yarn over, of course, and we pass it over the stitch that we've just created in the previous step. That's it. Now we have a lovely left slanting decrease, and then we continue working in the pattern as usual. So what happens when we make these decreases in every other row around and we stack them on top of each other? That's what happens. So we form a lovely line of stitches that make those beautiful patterns that we usually admire on Pinterest and elsewhere. And it also works great for shaping garments. And this decrease, the left slanting decrease, looks almost the same on the wrong side of the work. So I would say it is almost fully reversible because it looks great on both sides of the work. Now you're well equipped to make something truly gorgeous out of brioche stitch. To read this tutorial as a set of step-by-step photo instructions, go to 10roseaday.com/brioche-decreases. To download it as a PDF, join the club at 10roseaday.com/club. If you feel that this tutorial should be suggested to other knitters, please click the like button below. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.